Welcome to Kill the Clock. This is the NFL edition, Week 13. We just got done with a slate of tasty Thanksgiving games. I'm Shaheen Koigani. I'm here with my good friend Anhad Singh. How's it going, man?
Good, good. How's everyone doing?
Great. I had a great dinner. Slept in like crazy today. Was a little disappointed by the games, but honestly, like I was in a state of itis from all the food, so I wasn't complaining really. I know you went to the Niner game. Uh,
Yeah, dude.
you want to tell
It-
us about Levi's Stadium and how cool of a experience that was?
Oh, I think it's one of the best stadiums I've ever seen. I'd been to Candlestick a couple of times, and it was fantastic. The atmosphere, everything was great at Candlestick, but Levi Stadium, it's just so new. It's so beautiful, and they got these stairs with like all these lights on top, and the screen is fantastic. It's still very clean, and there's this tower full of just these boxes on one side, and so I think you can get some pretty nice seats, and just the whole experience fantastic. And as far as the game went, just the stadium experience was the fantastic thing, you know, especially for a Niners fan. One thing, shout out to AWOL Nation. They did the halftime show, performed Sale, is just lots of fireworks, lots of smoke. It's fantastic. And as a Niners fan, I think that's all I want to talk about of that game.
Well, unfortunately, we're gonna have to recap that game as well as the other two, and then look
Yeah.
forward to.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's start the first game, the morning game. It was Chicago and Detroit.
Yeah.
And why don't you even give me your is it a, hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to give me your impressions of the morning game, the Detroit
Yeah.
against Chicago?
Um, I actually thought that Chicago started the game off well. I know Jay Cutler's been getting a lot of criticism over the past few, or in fact, almost entire season, but I don't think he did that bad of a job. But having said that, their defense just did not show up. I want to talk about one person, Brandon Marshall. He's been very vocal about the whole offense of, the Chicago Bears and how everyone needs to step up. I've seen him drop a few catches, and I don't know, it's sort of going under the radar, but he's one person who's standing out as one of the guys who's been absent when it comes to making some important plays. Um, Chicago, their season's over. It's sorry to say that to all the Chicago fans, and they don't seem to pull it off. And I don't know. I don't have any more details to go into other than that, but that's what I felt about Chicago. Now, coming back to talking about Detroit, I think Megatron, that's one glaring positive that you have to talk about if you're a Lions fan. A lot of talk going around, is Megatron the same guy or not anymore? And, how's his ankle and everything? He just showed in this last game he is still the Megatron, right? And as long as he's healthy, you know, connects with Stafford, uh, Golden Tate is still doing what he was brought to do, and this team's looking good, and they're in for a playoff run right now, uh, if that things stay the way they are. What do you make of that game?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that Chicago got off to a good start. They had the first possession of the game. They drove really impressively down, and they knew that going into the game they weren't really going to get anything from their running game. So they decided to use a lot of quick passes and get the ball out of Cutler's hands, and it was actually really effective. In the first quarter too, like they scored on the first possession, and then they got a timely sack strip from Jared Allen on Stafford, and they made to score for the first quarter. It seemed like the Lions' offensive line to me was in shambles. I mean, they were starting two rookies on their line. Riley Reef was injured in the Patriots game last week, and he wasn't playing, and that was what I was actually looking forward to seeing, is how their offensive line would hold up. After the first quarter, the Lions really got going, and Stafford actually had. We talk about Stafford, before this game and going into the Patriots game. We mentioned that like he was like something like 0-10 against teams with a winning record on the road.
Yeah.
So you know that he gets his job done at home, and you would figure he gets his job done at home against a sub 500 team, and that's exactly what he did. He actually had one of the best performances of his career. He finished with 390 yards, 34 of 45, and in the first half, I think he had like around 83% completion percentage. So he was very efficient, and you mentioned Megatron. I mean, when this guy is in good form, there's very few players that are as dominant as he is, and that the first touchdown that he had over two players, it was just such a Megatron touchdown. That was what we've been waiting to see, and that was just such a sick catch, and it just shows how dominant he could be. And Kyle Fuller, he was nursing an injury going into the game. We weren't sure if he was going to be in the game. I didn't think it made much of a difference if he was healthy or not. I don't think anyone was going to stop him. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line started playing better, and then they just got rolling, and Chicago couldn't come back in the game.
Yeah, and there's something to say about how fast the tempo was, the offensive tempo was for Detroit Lions, and I think that's the key. I think Jim Caldwell also mentioned something. I forgot the interview, but the offense has to stay up tempo, and that's when Detroit Lions actually play well. If you've seen some of the past games, Stafford, he hasn't looked that good, or he hasn't put that good numbers. He was intercepted a bunch of times. And I think the key is, and as Jim Caldwell also said, they have to play at an up-tempo. They have to play up-tempo, and let's see if they can hold up to that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a very impressive outing. Although I think a lot of teams in this league, when they play the Bears, they often have career nights and really good outings against them, especially this season. The defense has just been terrible. Do you think Mark Trestman will keep his job?
Oh, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It just depends. I don't know. There's a lot of factors here. What do you think? I really have no answer for this. That's why I'm so short of words.
Well, the GM Phil Emery, you could blame him maybe for not, retooling the defense, and you know that going into the year they had a fantastic offense. They were second in the league last year in total offense, and they were terrible last season defensively, and not much has changed on the defensive side of the ball. So if you are going to fire Trestman and not the GM, which is typically what happens, Phil has to bring in someone who could work the defense. And I think it wouldn't be a bad decision to give Trestman one more chance too. But a lot of the questions coming from Chicago right now are actually even deeper than that. There are so many issues with this team. One of them being, we just gave Jay Cutler an extension. Is he really our quarterback for the future? And I think a lot of Chicago fans would say we don't want him to be.
And that's what I was alluding to when I said that I really don't have an answer, because when you look at this season, you can point out of all these mistakes that Jay Cutler have made. So is it really Mark Trestman, or is it Jay Cutler, and probably they need to figure a situation out at the quarterback position?
Absolutely. I think he's one of the, he has, I think, most of the turnovers, a lot of his turnovers have been from fumbles, and I think there's just a lot of pressure in any quarterback when they know that they don't have a very good defense. There's pressure and expectations falling on them to perform well, especially with the weapons that they have. Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, who had a really good outing. He had 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, there's a lot of pressure and expectation. I'm not sure that you could really blame Jay Cutler, but again, that extension, that contract, I remember when it happened. It was a little mind-boggling to me, just because I didn't expect him to get the kind of money he did, and I just don't think he's that kind of a lot of people. Again, he's like one of the most polarizing quarterbacks in the league. He's got all this talent, but I mean he throws a lot of interceptions, makes a lot of mistakes, and he just seems so, for lack of a better, I don't know, aloof or like just too relaxed. Not like Aaron Rodgers relaxed, like where he says that in week 3 or something and goes on a tear. He just seems like he doesn't care. He's like apathetic. Like if you go on Tumblr, you can find that one site is Smoking Jay Cutler, where he has a cigarette in all these pictures, and it just why are there memes like that? Because that's what he looks like on the field. His body language is just like that. I think he's just going to be like that. I think that's what you have to get with him. But I think it's also, I don't think it's all the blame should be on Cutler or Trestman. I think, there's plenty of blame to go around the whole team. And that's really the problem.
It's funny you say that about Cutler because I was watching First Take recently, and Greg Olson.
Uh-oh.
I know but I didn't watch it for Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith. Much respect to them, though. But it was Greg Olson was on the show, and I think he was talking about Jay Cutler, and he said that, there's a lot of criticism on the point that you mentioned, that he looks aloof and all that, but Greg Olson said that that's not true because, behind the scenes, he's as competitive as anybody else. We don't see it because we're not there. But that's, a reference from an insider, who's seen him and, worked with him. So I guess there's something that we don't know about him. But then, when you look at other quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, you just see this air of confidence and this certainty of what's supposed to happen and the things they can pull out. We don't see it, right? So either our comprehension about Jay Cutler is not correct, or something really is wrong. For whatever the reason is, the franchise should not be liable or should not suffer through those mistakes. So before Mark Trestman, I would probably look at Jay Cutler.
Yeah, that's fair. I would probably stick with Cutler because I'd try to maybe bring in like a really good quarterback coach. I'd maybe give Trestman another chance, and I'd tell Phil Emery you really need to fix this defense, and they have to show improvement next season because we have the offense, and we can't just keep asking Jay Cutler to score 35 points a game. And to your point, like we don't know about Jay Cutler really. He looks aloof, and his body language looks off, but I believe Greg Olson. I think he is a competitive dude, and actually a lot of people have said that about Jay Cutler, that he's misunderstood. He's a lot like Cam Newton. Cam Newton seems misunderstood. He puts that towel over his head. People say bad body language. There are a lot of quarterbacks like that. I think as fans we want to see the talent match up with a killer instinct like we see from Tom Brady. And I mean, not everyone is like that, but like also there are some quarterbacks that are just composed out there and they just get the job done. And like for example, like Tim Duncan, you don't think of him as like a fiery dude, but he's actually as competitive as anybody. So it's really how you channel that energy, and it's the perception that he gives off maybe is unfair, and maybe we should let off on Cutler a little bit. But I mean, he deserves some blame, and so do a lot of people. As for the Detroit, though, Detroit looks like a great team. But going into this game, a lot of questions about whether they were going to score a touchdown. I think it was like 100 offensive snaps without a touchdown or something like that, and like a lot of quarters without one. They finally got off the schneid, and Chicago is a really good confidence booster. 34 points for them. So they look good. I think 3 of their next 4 games are at home, and they're games that they should win. It really sets up for Week 17, a huge game at Lambeau.
I was just going to ask you a question as a Packers fan. Does Detroit scare you?
Oh, absolutely. That defensive line scares me. Megatron always scares me. We play him much like any team plays him. We would put Sam Shields on him and put a safety over the top. And now that they have Golden Tate, he could kill us over the middle. And that offense really hasn't looked that dynamic this season. because Megatron's been missing for some time, and they just need to get some consistency. Sure how long he's out for actually, but yeah, I mean this is a dangerous team. They're a complete team, and if their offense could get going to the expectation that we all had for them, they could beat anybody. Let's go on to the second game, which you watched some of this game. I watched all of it, although I was fighting not to fall asleep because I was the Eagles just. Oh my gosh, the first couple possessions they were just on fire. Like one of the best offensive displays of the
Yeah.
season. I am not exaggerating. They were so good offensively. And let me just say this, Dallas, their defense looked exactly like I thought they would this season. And I think that I've said in past weeks that they've been maybe overachieving on defense, and that's not a bad thing. Could they keep that up? They just totally looked gassed against Philadelphia. They could not keep up with them. This high tempo, uh, fast tempo offense just looked way too much for the Cowboys, and they just ran them out of their own place. I mean, and then props to their defense too for getting pressure on a dominant O line for the most part of the season. And this is a really impressive result on the road for the Eagles, who they're going to play at Philadelphia in 2 weeks. So this is a huge result.
Yeah, you mentioned the game got off to a great start. I'm pretty sure the first four possessions saw three touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, something like that. It was great, and the Eagles' fast-paced offense. I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but for the most part, it's been working. One thing that I want to point out, we always talk about the offense. People have a lot of question marks about the defense. I actually seem to think that Eagles do great defensively, especially their secondary. I think it is not bad at all, and it's resulted in a lot of points throughout the season. I don't think they get enough credit. You have to look at guys like Des Bryant, who only got like 4 touches in that game for like 73 yards, one of which was a really, really great catch. I think the 38-yard catch. And if you can neutralize the best receiver on the offense like that, you certainly deserve credit.
For sure. I think they're one of the league leaders in sacks, and I think their defense is set up to create turnovers and get the ball back to their fast-paced offense, which is a lot like I mean that is a good strategy for any good offense. Much like the Colts with Peyton Manning for the last decade, their defense was aggressive, tried to get after quarterback, get a lot of sacks, get a lot of turnovers. A lot like Green Bay's defense right now is based on getting turnovers to give it back to their offense. It's a lot like what Philadelphia is doing. Connor Barwin is having a standout season. I think he's got over like 10 sacks. He's having a great season. And Trent Cole, I mean, those guys could rush the passer. Michael Kendricks is an excellent linebacker. And they really got after Dallas, and they hurried Tony Romo. And I mean, I don't know if it's Romo's back, and a lot of people were talking about that after the game, but he really, I know he was rushed on a lot of his throws, but he was off target on a lot of throws in that game. And there were a couple throws where he had Des Bryant deep and a couple receivers deep, and he just simply missed. DeMarco Murray, for the most part, they contained him, although he had a pretty solid game. Containing is, anyways, I mean, yeah, they contained him for the most part. And I mean, Sanchez was outstanding. He had two
Yeah.
touchdowns, one passing, one rushing, 20 of 29, 217 yards, scrambled for 28 with 7 scrambles. I mean, extremely sharp. What a win! I'm
Yeah.
really surprised. I'm really like,
Y-
wow, Philly.
both these teams played 4 days ago. It was a shorter week for both of them. On the 23rd, the Cowboys played the Giants, which went to the very end, and the Eagles had a slightly easier game against Tennessee. Would you do you think that deserves just that schedule and a tough game on Sunday? Is that worthy of giving the Cowboys a pass, or is there a deeper problem?
Yeah, I think when you talk about Thursday games, you have to mention. I mean, two games in a week for any NFL team is really tough.
Yeah.
A lot of NFL players have mentioned that they don't like Thursday games, even if it is Thanksgiving. That a lot of people would actually do away with it completely and just have games on Sunday and sometimes on Monday. I totally, I mean, I'm not an NFL player, and I can only imagine how much strain that on their bodies that they're going through because, I mean, an NFL game, you go through a lot of there's a lot of pains after the game, and then in 4 days you have to play again. And this was a divisional, huge game. And I mean, we'll talk about another game which is just as big, but I mean, this game could decide the division. And I mean, they play again in 2 weeks. But I think at the same time, like Philly really didn't get let off the gas against Tennessee. They kept playing up tempo, and in that game too, and they tried to rack up the points. So I don't really give Dallas a pass. Everyone has to play Thursday games, especially on Thanksgiving. I mean, Dallas always plays on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And it's interesting because they played a Thursday night game, and next Thursday they're gonna play Chicago. All right, so it's the seven. They get 7 days, and they're playing Chicago. So I think that might not be a bad idea. However, on Sunday, Philadelphia are playing Seattle, and I'll be watching that game for sure. That's gonna be an insane game.
right, that's going to be great. And we will preview that next week.
hmm
But speaking of Seattle, they went into San Francisco, and
Hey, don't you think we're done with this podcast?
okay, we're just conveniently done with this podcast, and we get to the Niner game. Okay, I don't know. Do you want me to ask you what you thought of your Niners, or should I just talk about them?
I think you should start off first.
Okay. Well, the Seahawks simply dominated the Niners.
hmm
Kaepernick looked bad. He the first interception he threw, I think it was meant to be a back shoulder throw to Brandon Lloyd, and he let him in field, and Sherman picked it off easily. And I mean, if you look at his numbers, 121 yards for the whole game, uh, 16 of 29, two interceptions. Uh, he was off target a lot in this game, and I mean, I, I don't know what's wrong with this offense. There are a lot of issues. A lot of people say Greg Roman with his play calling. Maybe they don't do enough read option. You need to utilize Kaepernick. I thought they were sustaining a little bit of success in a couple of drives when they were using the read option, but they didn't keep going at it. I think really everyone wants the Niners to just run the ball. But I don't think they've been running the ball with that much effectiveness this season either. So what do you do? Well, okay, you could split it out 4 or 5 wide, but Kaepernick is not Peyton Manning. He doesn't at this point in his career he has not yet learned to adequately read a defense. He zeroes in on receivers a lot. He misses open receivers, and he doesn't lead their throws and hit them accurately. And I mean, against a team like Seattle and against an elite secondary, against a team that held Arizona to 3 points, and I mean, they got the same result in 2 weeks, 19-3, in two division games. So that is huge. You can't make mistakes. You have to be on target, and he was not, and he paid dearly for that. 3 points at home, that says a lot. I mean, the Seahawks came in and did their business, and I mean, NBC rolled out a table with a big turkey, and Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman were eating turkey on the logo, which I thought was disrespectful. I don't know why NBC did that. That's not cool. But yeah, I mean, the Niners have to go to Seattle and play them in a couple weeks. And you mentioned, like, am I scared of Detroit? I'm scared of Seattle more than any team in the NFC as a Packer fan. I'm scared of Seattle. They won a Super Bowl last year, and they haven't. had a touchdown scored against them in a couple weeks. I mean, they went into San Francisco and they looked dominant. They did the same against Arizona. We'll see. We'll have to see what they do against Philadelphia at home, but I expect them to win that game too. So I'm really scared of this team. It looks like they're regaining that form. And Earl Thomas was talking on NFL Network after the game. He said that friction has bonded them together and made them more, together and love each other more. Something to that effect. Well, okay, that's not good. If this team loves each other and there's no more friction in the locker room and Marshawn Lynch is running the ball and Russell Wilson's making magic happen like that pass to Tony Moyaki where he evaded three sacks basically on the same play and found a wide open tight end for a 68-yard gain. That kind of stuff, that's just exactly how they were playing last year with the kind of defense that they're playing. So I'm really, really scared of Seattle. The hope is that they don't get home field. If they get home field, it's over. I'm going to say this right now. If they get home field in the playoffs, I think they'll go back to the Super Bowl. If they don't, they've proved that they could win on the road. This is the first time that they beat Harbaugh, a Harbaugh team in San Francisco. This is the first time they've done that. I want them to keep doing that on the road. I would rather face them on the road than have to play there because I want nothing to do with Seattle and that crowd, and it just reeks of what happened last year. Yeah, I'm scared of Seattle. What do you think?
One thing about Seattle, you said how the locker room frictions, have brought them closer and, how they're playing better. You have to also point out they started the season off and then followed a couple of games with a bunch of injuries, especially for a bunch of their defensive players. Mm-hmm. All that's done, right? The only thing different from last year in the big picture is Percy Harvin. And they didn't even really need him to go into the
right, yeah.
Right? And so we're exactly at the same situation in Seattle, which was dominant throughout the last season, right? And so this is definitely a team to be scared about. Now, talking about the 49ers, so much wrong for the game yesterday. They're not as bad as what happened yesterday. That's the first thing I want to say. Mm-hmm. Second thing is I was wearing a Kaepernick jersey. My buddy was wearing an Alex Smith jersey. And there's this notion around with a lot of 49ers fans that trading away Alex Smith was a mistake. That's a whole other debate. I think that's not something that the 49er fans necessarily should be worried about right now. There's so many other things that come apparent. One of the things that really, really made me sad yesterday was going into the fourth quarter, we were down. There was no urgency. Kaepernick was taking his time. The whole team was discussing, in the huddle, slowly getting back into the possession, slowly getting into the formation. There's no hustle. There's no urgency. There's no desperation. And you don't see that if Seattle's down. Everyone's going there with hope. It pains me to say this. By the fifth minute, when it was 4.5 or 5 minutes to go before the end of the game, the stadium was almost empty. People were leaving, and that's how bad the things went at one point. And it's unfortunate. The biggest blunders that I see in these games is Michael Crabtree. I'm almost done with that guy. He's more about, Michael Crabtree than the 49ers, except that one play against New Orleans Saints in which he caught that 51-yard pass. There's, I don't know, a lot of times he's just missing. He's the Richard Sherman, Michael Crabtree rivalry is clearly being won by Richard Sherman in the past 2 years, and I don't see it being changed anytime soon. Seattle, when they play 49ers, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're playing all guns blazing. They're all out. And we just don't look that bothered. It was just such a flat performance. I'm not saying we're in a crisis or something like that. We still have a realistic chance to make the playoffs. but that fervor, that energy, that passion, it was all missing. It was like we were out there playing Jacksonville. That's how motivated I thought that our players were. And I might be exaggerating here, but that's how it seemed, when you were sitting right there. Um, and when you get into more technical aspects of the game, play calling has been a big question. But I do agree with one point you mentioned, is that even if there's more emphasis on running the ball, we haven't been able to run the ball as good. Um, Carlos Hyde looks to be a good player, but he's nowhere close to what Gore still brings.
Mm.
And you don't see Frank Gore play the whole game. It's he's he's not playing. I don't know the percentage of plays he's on there, but his production's low and his play involvement is low, and I just don't know what are the reasons for all this. Is it due to health? Is it due to some weird tactical thing that's going on? And all this really needs to change. There's question marks about Harbaugh stay next year. There's just so much uncertainty with this franchise right now, and yeah, I don't have many answers to these questions. One thing I know is that next week, things will be different. This is the performance really does not represent of how the 49ers are as a team, but it's just so surprising that it came against Seahawks, in which you expect them to just go all guns blazing.
So okay. Well, about that, for the most part throughout the season, the offenses look pretty flat, and they're one of the worst teams in the red zone. They don't score when they don't punch it in when they should. They for the most part the offense just hasn't looked the same, and it has a lot of question marks. The defense has been phenomenal. With all the injuries that they've had this season, Vic Fangio, I would have to think that if Harbaugh is gone, he would step in and be the coach. Maybe, I mean, that just makes the most logical sense, because what he's done with this team. I mean, credit to Trent Baalke too for picking Chris Borland in I think it was the second round or third round. What a linebacker he's been. And I mean, this is just their defense just still comes up and plays. I mean, Seattle had a lot of opportunities to kill the game, and they only scored 19 points. The problem is the offense scored only 3. And I mean, against Washington, against the Giants, there were a lot of opportunities to score points and put the game away like a good team would. And I just think their offense is really the bigger issue. It comes down to QB play. It comes down to play calling. There's some offensive line pass protection issues. They're not running the ball effectively. I mean, there's a lot of issues offensively. I'm not sure if Greg Roman should retain his job next year. A lot of Niner fans have been saying that he should not be there next year. I don't know. I don't like the play calling. It's not very inventive, and it's flat. It's spreading you out 4 or 5 wide with the wide receivers you have. That's great if you have a quarterback that could read and diagnose the defense. So what should he do with Kaepernick? I expect to see him under center, run the ball down there, even if it's not really that effective. Keep running the ball on first and second down. And if you have some success, use the play action. Use Kaepernick's legs, bootlegs, a lot like Seattle does. Use the read option. You have to utilize Kaepernick's physical tools and stretch a defense with misdirection. You have Vernon Davis maybe blocking and then getting to the second level, going across the grain again, across the defense and hit him right there on a bootleg or something. I don't see that kind of offense from the 49ers like I did in 2012 when they were very effective and went to a Super Bowl. So I don't like what Greg Roman's doing right now, and I mean I think he deserves some of the blame. But I think with Kaepernick, I'm not saying you should cut him, but I think you should give him one more year. If he doesn't show any progress, because for the most part, a lot like Nick Foles, who I mentioned weeks ago on the podcast, pretty much the same player that he was last season. And I think that's what I see from Kaepernick. I don't think he's regressed. I just don't think that he's made any progress in terms of being a pocket passer. And the problem is he's not using his legs like a lot of fans want him to. So at this point, you have to just shrug your shoulders and be like, well, what could you do? So I mean, there's a lot of issues on the offensive side of the ball. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there are, and there's some plays which are just so weird. I think the second or the third interception, I think the second interception that Richard Sherman took, right?
Right.
It was on the first down, and it was 3rd and 1 before that. The ball was run, going to the first down, and Kaepernick throws the ball, right? We would expect you should be running on that play because we were close, and there was still some contention of making a comeback, and it was a bad throw, and quite frankly, it should not have been thrown in the first place. When you look at those plays, you just question like what's going on, and it probably comes down to Greg Roman. Now I know Roman is Harbaugh's man, so if Harbaugh goes next season, I'm assuming Greg Roman's going to go too. But I like Harbaugh, and I just wish we could have Harbaugh stay and Greg Roman go.
Right. I mean, just to clarify, the second interception Kaepernick threw, that's not on Roman though.
Yeah, it was a bad throw, but
yeah, I mean,
it was
Kaepernick did a good job stepping in the pocket, breaking the pocket, going to his right, and then he threw it right at Richard Sherman.
But the thing is, that play was wrong. You should be running the ball because the situation we were in.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the wrong play.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want it to be too much doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Let's move on. I'm sure you want to. Let's move on to Sunday's slate of games. We got Washington Redskins 3-8 against the Indianapolis Colts, who are 7-4. The line right now is the Colts by 10, over under 51. Okay, well, as much as we've talked about the Niners, I could go on and on about the Washington Redskins, who have benched Robert Griffin III for the second consecutive season. And let me just go on a tangent. Can I go on a tangent for a second? I won't make it too long. What are the Redskins doing? What are you doing? Okay, are you a brand or are you a team? Are you a football team? Are you trying to win games? Because, okay, I heard a very good analogy the other day. If you have a messy room, you could either spend the time and the effort to clean it, or you could just leave it messy and it could get messier. The Redskins always want to just win now. Well, okay, you have a lot of issues, and you have a quarterback that you spent 3 first-round picks and a second-round pick for. You have to think about the future in this league. You have to think about you're 3-8 right now. What are you doing benching him and putting in Colt McCoy? Like, can you explain that to me? No, you can't. There's no explanation for that. That makes no sense at all. Even if Robert Griffin is playing like crap this season, he's 25 years old. Just let him play out the rest of the season. Get him reps. Get him opportunities to further. I know it's not working for him right now, but do you really think you're going to get into playoffs with Colt McCoy at 3-8? The season's done. The season's over. Colt McCoy's not your future. He's over 30 years old. There's just no reason for them to do this, and it just speaks to all the things that we've been hearing recently. Maybe there is something going on in this organization. Jay Gruden doesn't like Robert Griffin III, or maybe he doesn't, vice versa. Or there's something going on, right? I'm sure there's a lot of dysfunction going on. I mean, I don't like the owner. The owner should change the name. And the owner thinks of this team as a brand, and he always wants to win now. Well, okay, the problem with that is you can't do that. It's not that easy. You have to start from somewhere. You have to clean your room, and it takes a lot of time. Maybe it takes 2 seasons. Maybe it takes 3 or 4. But you have to start cleaning this messy room and become a winning franchise. And to do that, you have to stop like taking the easy way out, and you have to build with what you have. Robert Griffin III is a young player. He's way more physically gifted. Uh, and I mean, you have to if Jay Gruden is going to stay there next season, you have to keep giving him reps in his offense. So now it seems like they don't want Robert Griffin III. They're not going to play him. I don't know if they're going to trade him in the offseason. I don't know if they're going to release him. That would be terrible. I don't know if he's ever. I would assume that he would go to another team and be traded. I don't know what they're doing. I just can't explain what they're doing. And for that, I think the Colts are going to win by 100. I hate the Redskins. What do you think?
You know, I want to mention something that happened last year. I think the Redskins had a decision to make. Should we should we put our trust in RG3 or Mike Shanahan? I think, and it's obviously they chose RG3.
Hmm.
Unfortunately for them, Joe Gruden and RG3 are not on the same page, as it's evident from their press conferences and the things they've said. RG3 calls out the whole team, and Jay Gruden says, "Well, you're a quarterback. You're not supposed to say that," essentially, right? And now the owner says, "Well, I chose RG3 over Mike Shanahan, and now I have to make another decision between Gruden and RG3." And one lesson that I've learned in my life is if there's one person who's had problem with five different people, it's not that the five different people have always conspired against him. It's that one person's fault, and that's what I see with RG3. Um, Hindsight's
He's
2020.
he's he's at fault for everything in this organization.
He's not at fault for everything in this organization, but you have to see that there's something that went wrong with this kid and just his psychological presence and how he's conducted himself ever since he got into the NFL. The brand RG3 became really big, and the teammates have a problem with him. We've seen so many times if he's fallen on the ground, he's just getting up by himself. He doesn't get that much help. There's problem with the ex-coach, and now there's a problem with new coach, right? So from where I'm standing, right, all I can see is this guy has had problem with all these people. I'm gonna put the blame on him. And
Oof. Oh man.
I mean, see, it's tough, but then as I told you, if a person's having a problem with five different people,
No,
it,
I get that logic. I just don't think it's fair.
it's
As
it it's not, but then you have to think about the future. How much time are you gonna spend?
Colt McCoy is your future.
Well, they can probably fix that. They could get
If
somebody in the
you
off
if you
season.
invested so much into this one player, I would think that you would be very stubborn, and keep playing him. That's just. I mean, I'm not alone in this. A lot of people, a lot of pundits have expressed their disappointment and about the Washington Redskins organization. Um, they don't know what they're doing. What is their direction right now? They want to win. He won Rookie of the Year the first year. They had a great offense. They were running the ball really well. Alfred Morris, by the way, always plays really well with Robert Griffin III in the team because of the threat of his run. Um, Conventional wisdom says that the West Coast offense, which is what Jay Gruden's offense is, the West Coast offense takes 3 years to learn. Colt McCoy has learned the West Coast offense for many years. He's over 30. He knows the West Coast offense like the back of his hand. Robert Griffin III, this is his first year in this offense. Conventional wisdom says it takes 3 years. You have to give him reps. I don't think it is his fault. He is absolute trash right now. It doesn't seem like he cares to that much. His attitude is crap. Everything is crap around him, right? But you got to give him that confidence. You got to keep giving him those chances. If you just discard him like this, it's gonna do worse for him psychologically, and it's going to set your team back many more years. I
And
mean,
you, and that's why I'm saying that the coach took this decision to bench him. It's gonna shatter his tiny little confidence that was probably there, and it just shows us that the coach is choosing not to go with RG3. Now, as you said, it might be because he thinks that Colt McCoy knows the offense much better. So while
he, he,
RG3
he
is
probably gives them a chance to win games, but
Mhm.
what difference does it make when you're 3-8?
That's true, and that's why I feel that they want to rectify this problem by probably getting rid of RG3. So what's the one thing that you want to look for now is trade value. That's the only thing that comes to my mind is just trade value. And I know you invested a lot in it. If he just goes for free, you're losing a lot. If there's some trade value and you get something for him, you're just, limiting your damages. And if that's what Redskins are doing, I wouldn't blame them personally because there is a problem and you just can't be stubborn enough to stick with the same problem and try to rectify it. Just move on. That's what I would do.
Again, don't you think some of that is because he's learning a new offense?
It is, but then why did he get benched for this game?
Because he's playing badly. But I mean, again, why is he being benched in this game? What benefit is there for benching him and putting in Colt McCoy? Are you trying to win games? At this point, you're 3-8. The season is lost. Give your young players some reps. You're going to lose games. Keep losing games and get a high draft pick. I mean, if Colt McCoy wins this game, you're 4-8. Like the season's still lost. It doesn't matter.
See, I know what you're saying, but I think we're having different conversations. You're still asking the question why he was benched, and I'm trying to say more like he's been benched, and I think it's just over. That's my conclusion from this.
I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the worst thing to do in this situation, and I think that they are setting their team back for many years to come. I mean, they have to now look. They're making a decision, basically, that we're moving on from RG3, and that's going to set the team back. But I mean, I don't think they really gave him a chance, because you're telling him, okay, we want you to learn the West Coast offense, and he's struggling in this offense with a terrible offensive line. I mean, did you see that? You saw the game against the Niners. He got sacked like 7 times. Didn't have any time to do anything. Even when he did have time, he wasn't on target, right? He played badly. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league this season. I get all of that, right? It looks like also the injury last season sapped his confidence athletically. Doesn't seem like the same player, doesn't have the same bounce. I think it all comes from confidence. I think he just has no confidence in himself. And what is the worst thing to do with a player like that? Benching him. Now you have a young kid who has no confidence in himself, absolutely none. He hates the team. He hates the coach. It's just making just more dysfunction. I mean, now Colt McCoy is not your future quarterback. I'm sorry. Like, now you have to start from scratch again instead of sticking with the problem and trying to fix it, because that's what good teams do. You have a problem, you stick with it. Give him one more year in this Jay Gruden offense. Second year learning the West Coast offense. Okay? If he still doesn't show improvement, what are you doing with Kaepernick right now? He's trying to learn an offense. Are you going to cut Kaepernick after this year? No. I mean, his contract, he's guaranteed for next season. But the point being, you have to give young players a chance. And they're cutting him way prematurely. That's what I'm thinking about this.
I don't disagree with that, but I think there's a bigger issue here, and it's not just about his talent or if he can learn or not. I think it's what goes on behind the scenes. I just mentioned that his teammates have had a problem with him. Coaches have had a problem with him. Maybe the franchise is just...
How much of that is true, though? Because we know that this is Washington, and this is the media is, especially with any team, and especially in this market, right, and where they are, there's way more exposure, and they just pounce on you like no other. And especially if you're struggling this and you're showing this much dysfunction, they're going to say anything to keep it going. And I mean, Robert Griffin III knows that. He's even mentioned it before. We play in Washington. We're going to get this all the time.
There's no smoke without fire, and I do believe that there is some problem. We've heard reports for a long time.
I'm sure there is, yeah.
There is. And maybe the franchise just wants to get away from that. And, we saw that with Percy Harvin and the Seattle Seahawks, right? If they thought there was a problem in the locker room, they're not scared to get rid of it. And what that does is it just brings everyone together. I don't think their talent, especially their offensive talent, is bad at all. The Pierre Garçon, Alfred Morris, these are really good players, and nobody's performing. Right? Can you put all the blame on RG3? Whether true or not, whether justified or not, if that's what's needed for the franchise to move ahead, I think that's what's got to be done. Because it's a business at the end of the day, and it's competitive sports, right?
That's not good business.
It,
That's not how you run a team. They're going to be shitty next season. They're going to be terrible. If this is the decision they're making, that's not what good teams do. You have to develop young players. You're a fan of the San Antonio Spurs. You
yeah.
don't cut Tony Parker after he has two bad seasons, first two bad seasons.
It's
You
different
don't
situation though, because this guy has been involved in a lot of different events, and a lot of
different coaches.
even the whole spotlight comes onto him. If somebody's taking that much spotlight, and there's this it's sort of cancer in the locker room in a way, right? This is my feeling. I think the Redskins just want to move from the situation, and that's probably what they're gonna do.
They want to win now.
I
they,
don't.
they want to win now. I don't know what
So
that means.
they've unleashed their secret weapon, Colt McCoy.
Yeah, I mean, he beat Dallas, right? I mean, right? They benched him for Kirk Cousins. I mean, then that didn't work out, and then now you have Colt McCoy, your third string, and I don't know. Okay, well, I think the logical thing to do, I think the best thing to do for this organization would be to keep playing him. The next season, give him a lot of reps in the offseason. Jay Gruden, if he's still there, I hope he's still there. There needs to be stability.
Mm-hmm.
Stay with it. You give him another year into West Coast offense. You keep it going with him. You give him that confidence because he's only 25 years old. He has all the ability in the world. You just keep it with him. The West Coast offense is about timing, anticipation, footwork. He has none of that right now. You have to keep giving him the reps so he learns. And I mean, everyone, after, again, conventional wisdom says 2 or 3 years, you will learn the West Coast offense, right, for all quarterbacks. This is his first season. I'm not going to throw in the towel after first season. That's exactly what bad organizations do, like the Raiders,
but
like Washington is doing right now. They are a bad organization, and they're showing it by their decision making. This is a terrible decision.
See,
again, all right, I'm done talking about it.
Yeah, we'll bring this up again once RG3 gets traded and we do a special podcast on him.
We'll talk. Yeah, Washington, you suck. You don't know how to be a football team. Yeah. Well, okay. So we both have Indianapolis winning. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right, moving on to the 2-9 Tennessee Titans against the Houston Texans, are 5-6. I mentioned in recent weeks that the Texans play a lot better at home, especially their defense. This is Zach Mettenberger against not Ryan Mallett because he got injured last week. He's out for the season. Back to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I mean I don't think there's that much of a drop off really. In fact, he might be better at winning games really because Houston was doing the right thing and giving a young quarterback a chance. So now that he's injured, poor Ryan Mallett, Ryan Fitzpatrick, capable backup, comes in. I think he'll get the job done at home. Jadeveon Clowney started his second game last week. Didn't look that good. He didn't really apply any pressure. But at home, again, with that crowd, with J.J. Watt, I like to see Clowney take advantage of Zach Mettenberger, who is an absolute statue in the pocket. Doesn't move around that much. So if you get pressure on him, the Titans are in trouble. But I actually like Mettenberger. I think he's shown some really good some promising qualities in the games, especially against the Steelers. So this being a divisional matchup, it could be a close game. I think we could expect it to be within one score at the end, but I think the point spread is Texans by 6. Do you like the Titans plus 6?
I think I have more faith in. Yeah, I think it's gonna be bigger than 6 though. Yeah, I don't like this.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually think it will be pretty close, something like 21-17 or something of that sort. So Titans will show some professional pride.
I don't think Arian Foster's playing, right?
I think actually he is.
He is? Well, I was going to say if he's not playing, then it's going to be a low-scoring game. So I don't know what the over/under for the game is, but if it's around 47, 45-ish mark, I would take the under. Um, the key here is that Mettenberger needs to be protected a lot better. I think against the Eagles he got sacked 5 times, and their O-line's just banged up. And till you don't protect your quarterback, you basically have no chance. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that the Titans have to work on. I think it will be an easier win for Texans, so I probably would put money on them even with the 6-point spread.
Okay. I would take the Titans if they weren't such a just a bad team. Because typically trends show in sports betting that, especially in the NFL, that if there's a second consecutive road game in which you're an underdog following a loss, the team has a high covering rate. So this is actually a good spot for Tennessee. Having said that, if I would pick the Titans, but I wouldn't bet on them this week because they're the Titans. They're 2-9. I'm not going to bet on a 2-9 team. But in the future, that's a very good spot to bet on. What I just mentioned. So yeah, I'm going to take the Texans in a close game. Moving on, we got two actually pretty good teams. Cleveland at 7-4 against Buffalo at 6-5. The line is Bills by 2.5. This is. I mean, both teams are still in the playoff hunt. Buffalo's still in it. They have a great defense, and the Browns are starting to get together defensively. They really should not have won that game, but the Cleveland has to be praying and thanking for Mike Smith being an idiot at the end of that Atlanta game for the absolute worst clock management I have seen this season. I mean, seriously, 51 seconds left in the game. You have the ball. You're throwing the ball. You're stopping the clock. You're giving them a chance to come back in the game, and that's exactly what they do. Oh my gosh! They even called a timeout. They called a timeout. Atlanta did. What are you doing? They even acknowledged. Mike Smith acknowledged that they were going to call a timeout. Well, let them call the timeout then. One and giving them the ball back. Oh my gosh, that is one of the dumbest things I've seen this season. Atlanta, the Browns really did not. I mean, good on them for taking the opportunity and winning the game. That's all I'll say about that. But wow, now they're going up against a much better team, against a much better defense. What do you think about the Browns and the Bills?
It's a tough one to really predict. That's why you can see the lines. It's just 2.5 points. I really like the Bills. I just think they need although Kyle Orton's done really good, I think they do need, if they get a really good quarterback, they could be a very formidable team for the next few years. Mm-hmm. As far as this game goes, it's just where's this game being played?
Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm probably just gonna go for the home team, just cause it's the home team. I'm not sure. Jordan Cameron hasn't played that well this season.
Well, he hasn't played for a while.
Yeah, and he's still questionable for the game. I know Carlos Dansby has been ruled out for the game, so the Browns do have a couple of problems there. However, Josh Gordon's back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had a pretty good first game. So it's close, but I'm just going to stick with the home team. And maybe a win by over 3 or 6 points, something in that range. Maybe a 23-17, maybe, something like that.
For sure, yeah. I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah. I think you mentioned Carlos Dansby. That's one of the, arguably their top defender. And I mean, Tashaun Gibson out with a knee injury, or I think it's a knee injury. I think he's out for the season. Huge loss. He led the NFL in interceptions heading into last weekend. So that's 2 big blows for the Browns defense. especially Gibson. I mean, I thought he's a phenomenal player. He was having an All Pro type of season. He's a great player. So I was really sad to see him go down. Um, they have Josh Gordon back, and I would expect Brian Hoyer, who played terribly against the Falcons. Again, I don't know how they won, but he played terribly to keep shoveling him the ball, and that's great for our fantasy teams, especially mine. I have a lot of Josh Gordon teams. Isaiah Crowell, if you haven't picked him up yet, fantasy tip, go pick him up.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think he's gone by now. He should be. If you're playing in a league that Isaiah Crowell is still in, you need to give me an invitation to play in that league next season. Yeah. Jordan Cameron, I think, actually might return. And that is going to open up so much for Cleveland's offense. Because Josh Gordon, I mean, stretching the defense vertically, Jordan Cameron will eat everything underneath and in the middle up the seam. He's a very athletic tight end. He's one of my favorite tight ends, actually. But I mean, Brian Hoyer absolutely has to step up his game, especially against his pass rush, which is really, really strong. One of the best in the league. I think they lead the league in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go with the Bills too, because their defense is fantastic. I think those two injuries that Cleveland has sustained, I think that that's really going to hurt them, and we could see a close game, but the Bills play a lot better at home, and I think I'm going to take them. What's the next game? San Diego 7-4 against Baltimore 7-4. That's a nice game. Ravens by 5.5 points. I'm going to give it to you. What do you think about this game?
I'm not sure about if I would take the spread or not, but I think the Ravens will win this game. It's at home. Justin Forsett has been named the AFC Offensive Player of the Week in Week 10 and Week 12, and he's absolutely balling. A lot of just Steve Smith he cooled off for sort of 3 or 4 weeks in between, but I think the spotlight is sort of coming back on, and I'm expecting him to have a big game sometime soon. And yeah, I think I'm fairly confident in picking up the Ravens, pulling this one at their home. What do you think?
I think the biggest issue for San Diego is that atrocious offensive line.
Yeah.
Phillip Rivers was playing at MVP level, but that's only because he was just getting the ball off in time before he get nailed in the face in those earlier games. I mean, in recent games, we've seen that the defense has been getting to him and has been pummeling him, and he's battling a rib injury now. So that was against the St. Louis defensive line. It was very formidable. And, I mean, going into the year, I thought they were going to be the best defensive line in the league. Now they're playing like it, or they're playing like an elite defensive line. They're going up against two of the best pass rushers in the league, Terrell Suggs, Elvis Dumervil, and low-key, Parnell McPhee is one of the best pass rushers. Baltimore has 3 of the top 15 pass rushers per Pro Football Focus, thank you, Pro Football Focus, in the league on their team. So that does not spell good things for San Diego's offense. However, having said all that, I don't know why. This is my unreasonable pick of the week. I'm going to pick San Diego to cover the spread. I thought it was somewhat impressive that they came back against the Rams. The Rams team that beat the Seahawks, Niners, and Broncos, that they came back and won that game. And I mean, Baltimore actually, per DVOA, is an elite team, a top 5 team. Thank you, Football Outsiders, for that. So I don't know what I'm thinking taking this because Baltimore's at home, but 5.5 points, I'll take it. I'll put some money on it, not a lot, but a little bit of money on it. I don't know why. You could talk me out of it, but yeah. I mean, I kind of talked myself out of it by talking about their offensive line. And Baltimore, Justin Forsett, what a sick player he's been for them.
Mm-hmm. I'll say one thing. In the last 6 weeks, Baltimore have the 3rd most sacks in the NFL. They've sacked the opposing quarterback 24 times. Couple that with the protection Phillip Rivers is going to get, I think you should change your pick.
I'm telling you, man, it's my unreasonable pick of the week. I make it every 3 or 4 weeks. I have a feeling. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's going to be a close game. I think they'll cover the spread. You can laugh at me after the game.
Oh, it's fair. I
Um,
have one of those unreasonable picks coming up soon too, so don't worry about it.
oh, for sure. New York Giants 3-8 going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars 1-10. I'll be watching this game. The Giants on the road are favored by 3 points. Giants by 3. So, what do you think? What do you figure about this game?
The
Uh,
the game, also known in the close NFL community as the Battle of the Scrubs. Well, I just made it up. Nobody says that. Um, I don't know. You know what? What's the spread for this game?
I said it was Giants by 3.
Giants by 3?
Hmm.
Wow. I think I'll just take Jacksonville because I have. Well, you know what? Actually, the Giants did play well last week against the Cowboys, and that catch was insane.
I think
Odell.
that's what everyone remembers from that game.
That's exactly what everyone remembers. Um, but the feeling, I just somehow have this feeling that the game has been played in Florida, and this could be Jacksonville's second win of the season. So
Yeah.
I'll put money on Jacksonville.
Wow. I can't put money on bad teams like this, but if I had to pick a team, I would actually pick Jacksonville. I think they're in a good spot. I think the Giants find so many ways to lose games, and if you're telling me that they're going to play Jacksonville, I think they're going to play down to their competition like they've shown a couple times this season. Um, I think they played so hard against Dallas last week. They're really not. I don't know if they're looking forward to this game. The Jaguars are just trying to get anything they can, and in front of their home crowd, I think they might get a win here. So I'd take Jacksonville's 3+3, but I wouldn't put any money on it because they're 1-10. I can't, on good faith, put money on the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I like the spot they're in. I
So so defensively, total yards given this season, the Giants are 28th in the league,
uh-huh.
and Jacksonville are 27th. And I've actually caught a couple of Jacksonville games. Their defense is pumped up. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the first half against Indy. Man, Indy were actually struggling at one point. Oh, I don't think that's a fair thing to say, but Jacksonville were playing really, really well.
Mhm.
It's just they don't have a complete team. They just don't they play at that level consistently enough to see the whole game through at a particular level of performance. But I, they can do it, man. I like Alan Hearns. I think he's a really good receiver. He's been injured. He struggled throughout the seasons, actually, except the first game when he really came up on the scene. So I don't know. I think the Jacksonville could pull this off.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if Marquise Lee plays more snaps in this game. Their second round pick. Allen Robinson is very very promising player out for the season. So I want to see Marquise Lee play more. I like Cecil Shorts. He should be in this game. I
Hmm.
really like him a lot. He's a very underrated player. The Jacksonville, their defense is not good, but they are very good at getting to the quarterback. That's why I call them Seahawks South. They have Gus Bradley was formerly with the Seahawks. He brought in a lot of players from the Seahawks. They get to the quarterback well. They have that pass rush that's really developing, and the Giants have injury issues on their offensive line. So this could be a game where they actually dominate the line of scrimmage. And I mean, I think they could do this. But
I
yeah,
have to say one thing. I actually like, the names we just mentioned. They do have some good offensive players. I just wish they didn't take Blake Bortles. Gus Bradley actually has been asking people to tone down the criticism for Blake Bortles, but I just sometimes wonder, what if they took Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, this team probably might have looked better, going forward. Not I don't think Blake Bortles can't, possibly learn and be better. But, you clearly see that Teddy Bridgewater was probably the best rookie who came out. Or maybe Derek Carr. If one of those guys were in Jacksonville today, this team would be probably winning more games than where they are right now.
I don't think they would be winning that many more. I think the thing with Bortles is he gives you um, a little more. I've watched a couple Jacksonville games. He's one of league leaders in interceptions.
Yeah.
He hasn't played well, but this is his rookie year. You cannot judge any player, especially quarterback, in his rookie year. Peyton Manning, look at his stats rookie year. Look at any good quarterback their rookie year. They don't have good years. There are very few exceptions to that rule. Russell Wilson, RG3. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, you really can't judge a quarterback off 1 year. Blake Bortles has a lot of work to do in his mechanics, in his timing, his anticipation, his accuracy is his biggest issue.
Yeah.
But I like that he's a big dude that could shrug off contact, and actually he's very mobile, and he makes plays with his legs sometimes. So there's a lot to like about him. Teddy Bridgewater, to me, has shown that his arm strength really actually was a problem. I thought it was kind of they were talking about that a little too much during his pro day, and I mean they made a big deal about that. I'm a firm believer in Teddy Bridgewater long term, but I'm starting to see why the Jags picked Blake Bortles, because he definitely has all the physical tools you look for in a quarterback, and he's showing some upside. I'm not going to judge him off 1 year, especially with this team, right? I mean, the supporting cast is not very good.
No, I actually, that's very fair. The only thing that really did put me off about Blake Bortles was decision making, and I think you can definitely work on that, coupled with accuracy. So yeah, let's see. It'll be exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Next game, Cincinnati Bengals on the road again. I think this is the last time they're on the road. 7-3-1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2-9, and still in the hunt for the division. Wow. So Andy Dalton, incredibly inconsistent this season, but has actually been playing pretty well recently. Go figure. I actually like the Bengals in this game to pull it out. The line is Bengals by 3.5. I don't think I'm gonna bet on this game, but I will take the Bengals because hey, they've won on the road. In recent weeks, and I think they're going to keep it going. I think they're in good form on the road right now.
One thing that I've learned this season is Bengals are so bipolar.
You and Andy Dalton, man. For the longest time I've known you.
We've had a connection. Andy Dalton was my fantasy quarterback last year. He was, I think, 6th in QB.
Who did you start him over? Who was also on your team?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady.
And fantasy wise, I was right. Andy Dalton before he got injured was 6th in QB rankings in fantasy. In real life, of course, I would take Tom Brady over him. Anytime you make a educated prediction about what the Bengals are going to do on the weekend, they let you down. So I'm going to predict a tie for this team.
You have to admit, though, that they've been playing really well.
No, they have. I think a part of this has also got to do with AJ Green help going. Which hurts.
I don't think anyone in Tampa could handle AJ Green.
Yeah, I think. All right, I'm gonna say it. Bengals are gonna win this.
Nice.
God help me.
Props to Jeremy Hill, averaging 5 yards a carry, way better in between the tackles and as an inside runner than Giovanni Bernard, who I predicted at the start of the season his fantasy value would tank once they realized what they have in Jeremy Hill, who's a much better inside runner. That's exactly what happened. Damn, patting myself on the back. Giovanni Bernard, he's more of a space back. You put him out in space, you give him the ball on screens, you give him the ball on checkdowns. With Andy Dalton's noodle arm, he doesn't push the ball downfield that much. Now give him a nice little check down. Giovanni Bernard, put him in space. That's where he does damage. Don't give him the ball and give him inside gut runs. Give it to the much bigger back. Jeremy Hill is averaging 5 yards a carry. I like what they're doing right now. I like their rushing attack. They should exploit the Buccaneers on the ground. They should exploit them through the air. That being said, Josh Gordon, last week they were actually up on the Bears. They were making some good plays, and they looked inept in the second half against Chicago's defense. Wow. So I don't really have much faith in them doing against a better defense in the Bengals, who haven't played that well this season, but they've had issues, just like any other team with injuries and stuff like that. But I expect the Bengals to get another road win, 8-3-1 for them. after this week. That's my expectation for them. Next game, Oakland 1-10 at St. Louis 4-7. I think this is the first time in a while that the Rams have actually been favored. They are favored by 7 points. Who are you taking in this game, and what would be your point spread prediction?
It's actually both these teams, I think, are going through a similar story. They started the season off really bad, big question marks as to how the season's going to progress. And at this juncture, I think they're looking at a good, bright future. It's going to be another tough battle. And you know what? They've both played well recently. I don't think anyone can deny that. Maybe the expectations weren't as high, but I'm gonna go with the home team here. Uh, that's just gonna be my prediction.
You take the 7 points?
Uh, I don't know. I'll be very apprehensive in taking the 7 points.
Mm.
Uh, but it's hard. That's a hard one. I think the spread is fair. It's that's how the game. That's something how I see the game go about, like 6, 7, 9, something in that region. It's a gamble. I would not,
Mm.
personally speaking. Yeah.
For sure. I would not either, and I would take the Rams in this game though to win outright. When you think about the Rams, Kenny Britt has played well recently. I like Stedman Bailey actually has emerged recently too. I like their chances against Oakland's defense. Speaking about Oakland, they have found a running back that is better than what the ones they have right now. Latavius Murray looked so explosive in,
Yeah.
in the game against the Chiefs, and then he was out. He got out of the game with an injury. He should be in this game. He's going up against a pretty good line, but as a run defense, let me see. They're 10th against the rush. So he will have a test. He will have a difficult contest for Latavius Murray, but I would watch this game just to see how he does, because fantasy alert, dynasty leagues out there, go get him. This guy is 6'3", 220, and he ran a 4.38 at his pro day. He ran 22 miles an hour on that 90-yard run, not 99-yard run. Sorry, 22 miles an hour. That's freakish at his size, people. Okay, it's not rocket science. This guy's a freak. Go get him on your dynasty teams. I wasn't able to. I'm bummed about that.
Let's just say something. You know, we've been a bit critical about the Raiders in the past, partly because we have a lot of friends who are Raiders fans. But on a positive, Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, and Latavius Murray, things have happened. Good things have happened this season.
Yeah, they have some good players.
Yeah, they do, but it's still good core to sort of build upon in the future, rather than have nobody and you sign guys like MJD on a 1-year deal, you know?
Right, and again, that wasn't the worst decision.
It was, yeah.
You know, with a little bit of money, not bad. You haven't gotten much from him this season, but again, that wasn't a bad contract. They had given him 5 years for $35 million, then I'd still be laughing at Oakland, but we laugh at them for other reasons. But yeah, they have some things to smile about, especially Murray. Khalil Mack is an absolute beast. He's an absolute stud. Go watch him play. I think he finally got a sack when he was one of the league leaders in getting pressure on the quarterback up to that Chiefs game. He finally got a sack against Alex Smith, and he should be a mainstay in their defense for years to come. He's one of the best 3-4 outside linebackers as a rookie in the league right now. So also keep an eye on C.O. Moore, great, really solid linebacker for Oakland as well. So they have some pieces. I like what they're doing, but they have to just keep the stability going. Obviously, they're not going to go into next season with Tony Sperano, so we'll have to see what coach they get. But as for this game, I like the Rams. Moving on, New Orleans, 4-7 on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The reverse record is 7-4. The Steelers are favored by 4.5 points. Who do you like?
I think this is a tough one. The Saints have definitely not looked good on the road, so I'm actually just gonna choose. I think I'm gonna go with the Steelers. You have to think about this. The Steelers, the Browns, the Ravens, and who am I missing in the division?
The Bengals.
The Bengals, right? So the Bengals play the Bucks, the Browns play the Bills, uh, and this is the hardest game. When you look at the best division, or not the best, I mean the most competitive division in the NFL right now.
Mhm.
So everybody else should look at this game and think to themselves, well, we hope the Steelers lose, right? Because let's be honest, it's the Saints, but it's the Saints on road, so it's an important game. I think there's a lot is riding on this game as far as the Steelers' chances of going to the playoffs matter, right? Um, it's going to be an interesting game, but I don't know. I just don't have that confidence in the Saints right now to put my money on them. What's the spread for this?
4.5 for the Steelers.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that.
Yeah, I think I would too.
Yeah.
I think the Steelers are a pretty good team. I mean, coming off did they play last week? I don't think they did, right? They were on a bye. I think they
I
were. Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
You
So I
you
mean,
have to give a shout out to Antonio Brown though.
oh wow. Yeah. I mean, he has been the best receiver this season, in my opinion. I mean, the way he beats a press off a line, he has one of the best releases in the NFL. No one could guard him. He is too quick for everybody. He is a human joystick. He just jukes people off the line, then gets open downfield. And the thing with Ben Roethlisberger, his whole career, he's made a living off. Okay, if the pocket breaks down, if the play breaks down, he could still make things happen down the field because he's a big dude who could shrug off defensive tackles and make a play downfield. And guess who's open? Antonio Brown every time. Um,
Mhm.
so I don't like the Saints in this matchup. However, it should be said that the Saints have been playing a little better on the road this season than I expected them to. They haven't been playing well at home. They're a dysfunctional team right now. I'm not sure why they they don't give the ball to Jimmy Graham more on the goal line. I don't know. They're doing a lot of weird things right now, and Sean Payton's one of the best coaches in the league. So it's just weird. I still expect them to win the division. So this is actually a big game for them. Um, so I think this is actually going to be a competitive game, and that the Pittsburgh will actually just stretch the lead out in the fourth quarter and get the job done and win by maybe a touchdown. But I think it could be a high-scoring game.
Yeah,
Um,
and Pittsburgh showed that they did it against Indy, when we sort of least expected. Because I actually like Indy's defense, something that doesn't get much credit, and that's where this game comes in. I don't think the Saints have that good defense, so if Roethlisberger gets the chance to do what he wants to do, and Antonio Brown's running all over, it's just hard to see how they can stop them from scoring 28 or even 35 points. And that's a big ask for the Saints team to do right now.
right. They have the capability of score that many points. I
Hmm.
just think I would much rather. I think the Steelers have a better matchup when you look at the New Orleans Saints defense, especially considering Martavis Bryant is an emergent talent across from Antonio Brown as a deep threat. The Saints can't cover it all, so I would expect him to get a touchdown in this game, maybe a deep bomb. They love to do that. I mean, this the Steelers to me, this is the time when they could come out with a big win and really set themselves apart. Um, I actually think that they'll end up as a wild card team, and I have Baltimore winning the division.
Hmm.
But yeah, I like the Steelers in this game, and I think they'll score 40.
Oh,
I really do.
what do you think about Marcus Beaton?
He hasn't made the most of his opportunities to me. It seems like there's been some disconnect with him and Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not sure what it is. Early in the season, they were doing a lot of hurry up offense, and Martavis Bryant wasn't on the field because he was a rookie. He didn't learn the offense in time. When they started getting away from the hurry up and just huddling up and being a conventional offense, Martavis Bryant was on the field, and he has now emerged as the second wide receiver. And basically, Marcus Wheaton has now been relegated to the third position. early on in the season, he absolutely had his opportunities to make plays, and he did not. He had a lot of big drops and some big crucial moments in games. I still think he's a good receiver. I think he needs to work on his route running. But if we're talking about Marcus Wheaton being that's pretty good. I'll be looking for to see how he does next year because right now I think Martavis Bryant has take his job, and he looks like the better receiver right now. He just looks so big, fast, nice size speed combination, huge deep threat for Ben Roethlisberger, and I mean with all the coverage rolling to Antonio Brown, this offense looks deadly. Let's go to the next game. Arizona, 9-2, coming off a tough loss in Seattle at Atlanta, 4-7, still in the race for the division. Atlanta, this is a big game for them. They're still trying to win. It's not over. It's 4-7. They're still trying to win the division. So, do you think that they could get the job done against Arizona, coming off a tough loss?
Um, Arizona offense has sort of not played well the last couple of weeks. Granted, it was against the Lions, the best defense, and then in the league, and then Seattle. So there are question marks about Arizona that they need to that will be tested. Having said that, I would expect Arizona to win this game. Do you know what the spread for this game is?
2.5 for the Cardinals.
Oh, interesting. I'm thinking why the spread is so low because just based on how the seasons have gone this far, I would expect the spread to be a lot bigger than that. And
well, I mean, they're on the road. The fact that any time a team is favored by a road team is favored by any points like that tells you that on a neutral field that team would be favored by like 6 points. So you figure home field is like 3 points, right? Mm-hmm. Cardinals, they're saying that Vegas thinks that they're 5.5 points better than the Falcons.
Yeah,
I would expect that to be a little higher, yeah, but maybe not that much more.
I don't think they played bad on the road necessarily.
No,
this season they haven't. They went to Dallas and they won 20-17, which is no joke. Even when they went to Denver, they lost 41-20, but they were still able to get 20 points. But that was Denver, and they were playing so well. Raiders 24-13. So I don't know. I'm going to be watching this game because Arizona have shown that they are a legit team. Bruce Arians is my coach of the year. Nobody comes close to him, and yeah, it'll be an interesting game. I will probably take the spread too for this game.
I really like the Cardinals. Yeah, I'll take the spread too for them. I think they're just a much better team than the Falcons, and the Falcons have only beat other NFC South teams this year. They haven't beat anyone outside of their division. So they've struggled at home. They threw away a game against the Browns, and they're coming up against a better team in my opinion. The Cardinals will get pressure on Matt Ryan. He has they've pieced together that offensive line with glue and whatever they could find, like tape and whatever. Calais Campbell's healthy. He's one of the most dominant defensive players in the game when he's healthy. The Cardinals have accumulated 17 sacks in the previous 3 games alone. They got 7 on Russell Wilson, and the Niners, as you know, you had first row view. It's very hard to sack Russell Wilson, and you do it 7 times. That's pretty good defense. So what do you think is going to happen to Matt Ryan? He's going to get beat up. He's going to be running for his life. His offensive line is in shambles, and he's going to be in shambles after the game. They're just I don't think they're prepared for this.
I really don't think that offensively it's like defensively. Sorry, it's going to be a problem for Arizona. For me, the question is how many points they can score. And I think
luckily
Larry Fitzgerald is questionable. I think, And
I think he's going to be out though.
he's just out. Okay.
I think he's going to be out. Yeah.
And they have a bunch of other people who are listed as probables. I can read the list. Lorenzo Alexander, Marcus Bernard, Andre Ellington, John Brown, Drew Stanton is had also an ankle problem. So they have some problems.
Hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see how many points can this score because, as I said, last 2 weeks, some offensive problems. Is that a trend that's going to go on?
I don't think so. Not against this team. When you think, well, I mean, the Falcons
Uh-huh.
29th in the league in yards per attempt at 8.08. They have the third fewest sacks in the NFL, 15. They don't get pressure on the quarterback. So Drew Stanton should have time. He has a pretty good line too,
Hmm.
um, and he challenges them vertically down the field. They're 29th against the pass. They're terrible against the run. They gave up 162 yards to the Browns last week. They're not a good defense at all. They're like Chicago bad.
Uh-huh.
They should put up points. If they don't put up points after this week, I could forgive you for not putting up points in Seattle, right? I could forgive you against Detroit. I
Yeah.
can't forgive you if you cannot put up at least 16 points against this Atlanta team. And honestly, with the defense you have, you could hold Atlanta to like 20 points, and you should score more than 20.
And
Um,
that's what I was gonna say that if they're not able to score more than 17 or 20 points, we should have a talk about this in our next podcast.
Yes, yes, and I think the best thing that they could do is because Drew Stanton is not Carson Palmer, you need to feature Andre Ellington early in the game and throughout the entire game. Just feed him the ball on screens, give him the ball, just feature him in every possession. He's a dynamic player, and he's really been carrying the team offensively. Um, I expect them to win the game. They're a better team. Going to the next game, the Super Bowl preview apparently. The 9-2, the best team in the league, the New England. The Packers are favored by 3 points. Wow. Um, what? Okay, I could say a lot about this game. I figure we're going to talk about this for a while. What do you think? What are your first impressions about this game? We've been hearing about it all week.
Oh man, my first impression is
I'll be watching this game.
I'm gonna be watching this game. Yeah. Oh man. And you said Green Bay is favored by 3 points.
-3, yeah.
Hmm. So New England are on the longest winning streak in the NFL right now,
I believe
correct?
they've won 7 games, and the Packers have won 7 of 8 games.
Hmm. This one is again hard to predict, and there's been something that I've been thinking throughout this season. How legit are the Patriots? And the question first came to my mind when they were faced with a bunch of injuries. Then I got reminded that Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick, and I had to concede that yes, they are as legit as everyone else talks about them. On the flip side, Aaron Rodgers is playing at an MVP level himself, and I do believe that he has a better surrounding cast. So this game probably will come down to who can defend better. And uh, I don't have the defense stats right now in front of me, but from what I've seen go on so far, I think New England are probably going to defend better. The game is being played in Green Bay, which statistically gives them what, a 3 point edge?
Right. I mean, home teams usually
Home
get
team.
3 points. Yeah.
So it's close, and just based on defense, I think I'm going to choose the Patriots.
Right. I also like the Patriots too. I'm going to put some money on them.
Hmm.
Um, I it's not that I don't believe in my Packers. We're as hot as any team in the league right now, especially at home. We put up 250 burgers on teams, especially a good Philadelphia team. The other one it was against Chicago, whatever. Um, but I mean, you put up 50 points on anybody in this league. Some people have to recognize that, right?
Yeah.
This is the Patriots. Now, the Patriots are missing their best pass rusher, Chandler Jones. They're missing some key linebackers, but they have still been chugging along, doing a great job. And I don't think it's any coincidence that as soon as Rob Gronkowski got healthy, this team absolutely changed on offense. He is the engine that makes this go. If you have a dominant player like Rob Gronkowski, everything could gel around him, and Tom Brady has done a fantastic job. The offensive line has gotten a lot better since that Chiefs game. By the way, I mean, the Chiefs are one of the best pass rushing teams in the league. They exploited Tom Brady in that offensive line. Since then, there have not been any problems with that offensive line. So you have to look at the matchups. You talked about defensively, right? In recent weeks, Brandon Browner, the bigger cornerback, has been on the number one, and they have safety help over the top. That's what they did against Calvin Johnson, T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Marshall, Julius Thomas. They put Brandon Browner on him, the number one weapon on the other side. So I expect him to be against Jordy Nelson with safety help over the top. Darrelle Revis will be on Randall Cobb, and I mean that's actually, like, I picked New England in this scenario. I think they could get the job done. They could clamp up on those two receivers, and then you're going to ask Green Bay, who are they going to hurt you with? I think the key for them has to be Eddie Lacy. And if the New England Patriots are ranked 20th in the league in their ground defense, their rush defense, the Packers have to exploit that. I don't have the utmost faith in their run blocking. As a pass protection unit, they're very good, top 10 in the league. As a run blocking unit, not so good. They have to set the tone in a cold weather game at home against the Patriots, and they have to run the ball early. Obviously, you don't want to take the ball out of the best player in the league's hands, so Aaron Rodgers still has to get the job done. But I just like the matchups when you look at New England, and I just don't see, if you ask me, like, do I have more faith in New England's defense or Green Bay's? The only good thing I could say about Green Bay is Nick Perry might be playing. And if Nick Perry is playing, that opens up Clay Matthews to play in the middle of the defense, and him and Julius Peppers could rush the quarterback. The problem is Tom Brady gets the ball out so quickly. Against Detroit, he did the same thing. Are they really going to get to Tom Brady? He hasn't been really pressured in recent weeks. So New England is just solid all across their team. I think they're more of a complete team right now. In my opinion, Rodgers has to beat Godgers to win this game. And they have to run the ball with Eddie Lacy, and they have to get pressure on Tom Brady. Those three things, I have more faith in Rodgers being Godgers than I have in Green Bay's defense. However, if Nick Perry plays, I'll feel a lot better about this game. Obviously, as a fan, I want us to beat the Patriots, because if we could beat the Patriots, I'm going to say this right now, it's not rocket science, people. We could beat anybody, and we will go to the Super Bowl. We could go to the Super Bowl, and we could get home field advantage if we beat the New England Patriots. But it's the New England Patriots.
That was going to be one of my closing remarks, that Packers have done good things. They're 4-0 at home going against the spread, last 4 games. But last time New England lost to an NFC North team was against the Packers in 2002 at Lambeau, right? And there's this history. There's a lot of stats coming up through this game. These are probably two of the best teams right now in the NFL facing each other. You mentioned some good matchups there. One of the things I've seen is Jordy Nelson has absolutely balled this season. He can find space whenever he wants, right? I've seen him open so many times, and will that happen again or not? And as you said, maybe, just maybe, Aaron Rodgers has to play as Rodgers just to find him with the Patriots defense out there.
Right, and statistically, these defenses are actually pretty close statistically. But, and I mean, in terms of DVOA, the Packers are second best team in the league right now. There are a lot of reasons why I don't like the Packers. And again, if Nick Perry plays, I think that really would be a huge boon to their defense, because that gives them a good pass rusher, and that allows Clay Matthews to be used as basically a chess piece. They would put him sometimes on Rob Gronkowski. He's actually one of the best linebackers coverage-wise in the league. Clay Matthews is, but they don't put him in coverage that often. However, in recent weeks, with him playing as a middle linebacker, they have been doing that. He's been playing really well. He's really good against the run. It's actually changed the defense, putting him in the middle, but Nick Perry has to play. Because if Nick Perry's not playing, you're not getting enough pass rush. Julius Peppers is the only threat with Mike Daniels in the middle.
Yeah.
You have to have Nick Perry on the other side so that you could move Clay Matthews around and do the things that Dom Capers, the defensive coordinator, wants to do. I think this could either go one of two ways. It could be a very high-scoring game, or it could surprise everybody and be very low-scoring. But I don't think either team is going to get blown out.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't think there's a blowout. We expect a blowout anyway. This game is being advertised as a preview to the Super Bowl this year.
I think it's ridiculous.
It's too early to say that, but
Way too early. I appreciate it as a Packer fan. That's cool, but that's way too early to say that.
Yeah. And it's so many things you have to see. New England Patriots are favored as of now as the Super Bowl winners. For this game being played in Lambeau, the Packers are being favored by 3 points, right? So on a neutral field, what does this tell me? They're neck and neck. There's absolutely nothing to separate them. And if there's a little edge that New England are getting, it's probably going to be because of their defense, And so it'll be an interesting game to see. And, I'll be definitely watching this game.
For sure. I like the spot that the Patriots are in. I also have to mention that Mike McCarthy, even though he's a top 10 coach, Bill Belichick is the best coach in the league. There's no coach that coaches a team better. He makes you play to your weaknesses. He plays to the team's strengths. To his team's strengths. There's no better coach than Bill Belichick. This team, Belichick and Brady, always come through in big games. I love the Patriots as an underdog in this game. I can't believe they are an underdog. They are the better team. But if the Packers win this game, it will go a long way in me thinking, wow, I think we could win the Super Bowl. We just beat the Patriots. Okay? So I'll be very psyched to see this game. This is also the first time that Rodgers has ever played Brady. On his radio show, he said that we don't want to make it about that, but it really is going to be about that. Because you have to think, when Rodgers is on the field, and if he leaves points on the field with like a field goal, he has to be kicking himself because he knows Tom Brady is going to be going out there getting touchdowns, and vice versa. This is going to be a chess match of epic proportions. It's hyping to be this regular season Super Bowl. Better than Patriots Broncos. That's great. Peyton against Brady, that's been, they've played each other 17 times. They're pocket passers. This is like, old pocket passer prototype against the new age modern quarterback in Aaron Rodgers who could throw on the run and do crazy things that no one else could do. So this is going to be a great matchup. I'm really psyched for this game. I wish we could talk about it for 2 more hours, but we got to move on. I'm going to take the Patriots in a close game. I'm going to go 35-31 Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the next game, which is actually a very good game in its own right.
Yeah.
Broncos 8-3 against the Chiefs 7-4, a divisional game. And could you guess who I'm going to pick in this game? It's the Chiefs. I'm going to pick the Chiefs.
I think you're going to pick the Chiefs, and I don't blame you for that. Denver just hasn't looked that good lately. We've talked about them the last 3 or 4 weeks. They've had some problems. There are question marks. The last game against Dolphins, that was close, right? They were able to pull out that win, but as we mentioned, Peyton Manning was 5-8 against Dolphins throughout his career. It's going to be a tough game. It's a high-scoring game, and I don't know. This is a very, very fascinating game because you have on one end Peyton Manning throwing the ball, and on the other end you have Kansas City, who have had 0 touchdowns by a wide receiver this season, and it's just such a crazy game. I don't know who to pick. I'm gonna go
what a cop out! Really?
I'm actually gonna go with Denver. because I'm expecting them to make this comeback and shut all the critics up. And
They're 8-3. It's not like they're in a bad spot.
they're not, but this is a big game for their division too.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I think this is going to be a statement game by Peyton Manning, and he's going to come out winning.
On the flip side, I think
Yeah.
this is going to be a statement game for Kansas City. Think about it. Kansas City has slaughtered New England at home, not earlier in the season. And I mean that seems like a long time ago, but they beat Seattle at home. They beat a lot of good teams at home. They slaughtered the Rams, who beat really good teams. They beat the Broncos. They have one of the best pass rushers in the game. Justin Houston right now is the premier pass rusher in the league right now. And then they have Dontari Poe in the middle and Tamba Hali. I think that Denver will be limited in their explosiveness on the road. They will score points, but I expect Kansas City to do it too. And against a very good defense, but they played really well offensively against them in week 2, and I think I expect that to happen again. Andy Reid is very good at utilizing his best weapons, although I say that, and he still hasn't used Travis Kelce like I wanted him to. Jamal Charles, he has used exactly like he should recently, and he's come out with very good performances. So Jamal Charles, in my opinion, is like matchup proof. He's like one of those players that you don't question it. You put him in your lineup in fantasy. Jamal Charles, he's one of the best running backs in the league, premier player. I expect him to have a big game, and they have to utilize Jamal Charles extensively if they want to win this game. Alex Smith has to be efficient, and that's exactly his game, right? Alex Smith efficient with the ball, doesn't force things, runs the ball pretty effectively with his legs. This is going to be a grinded out kind of game, and I think that's exactly what Kansas City likes. And I think they will get pressure on Peyton Manning, and they will come through with a win. Oh, gasp!
Well, I want to add one thing here. Eric Berry.
Oh yeah, let's talk about him
Be
first.
out for the whole season. It's a big loss from a footballing perspective, but just on a bigger note, they discovered a mass in his chest, and I don't know what the doctors have diagnosed it as yet, but he did. I think it's believed to be lymphoma, and which is deadly, man. And all the best to Eric Berry, from Kill the Clock and everyone who's involved with our podcast. We wish you all the best, and we just hope to see you playing healthy, leading a good life ASAP. And
Yeah, Eric Berry is an elite safety. He's
mhm.
one of my favorite players in the league, and I was really sad to hear this.
Mhm.
I really hope he could fight this and come and beat this thing. That would be the best story ever. And you have to think that uh, you have to think that the team could probably maybe even play for him
Mhm.
and beat a very good Broncos team for him. And I would love to see that passion played for him. And I expect to see something, some exposure for Eric Berry. I know everyone in Kansas City is reeling from this. Best wishes to his family. I really hope he comes back from this. It's just a terrible situation. It's really sad. It's a tragedy.
So
And he's still so young. I mean, he's a very young player. He's an extremely good safety. I mean, just a complete safety. Comes out and hits you, coverage wise, solid. I mean, one of my favorite players in the league. And I mean, I remember a couple years ago there was a really funny thing on NFL Network where it showed how he's really scared of horses, and every time the horse comes out for the Broncos or for the Chiefs, the Mustang that comes out that the cheerleader rides with the flag, he always goes and hides because he doesn't want to be anywhere near the horse. It gives you an idea of his personality. He's a fun dude, and I just so sad about this news, man.
what's the first thing he asked the doctors after the diagnosis about the cancer was made?
What was it?
Can I play on Sunday against the Broncos?
What a beast, dude.
I know, man.
What a beast, dude. Oh, I love you, Eric Berry.
Much respect.
Much
Um,
respect. I love you, man.
yeah. Let's
Yeah.
move on to our last game.
Yeah. Damn, I'm a little sad now. Miami Dolphins 6-5 in the playoff picture against the putrid, pathetic, terrible, funny New York Jets at 2-9.
You know,
Yeah.
there's something to say here. You know, we've talked about Jacksonville and Oakland, and we mentioned their positives to look for. The team I really think is probably the worst in the league this season has been Jets. Just everything's gone wrong. When you change your quarterback, you know, you go from Geno Smith to Michael Vick, and then you go from Michael Vick to Geno Smith, and it happens during the game, and it's such a mockery, and it happened before with
Sounds like the Redskins. Oh,
well,
sorry.
it happened with the Tebow saga there too, and I don't know. It's just this is this mockery at its best here, or worst, I should say. I have no faith in them. And to add it all, they got Percy Harvin.
Yeah,
um,
actually, it's played pretty well for them.
he has, but it's just funny. They got a
Right.
guy who was called a locker room cancer, and not just Seattle. He's had a slight history of that, and
Minnesota, yeah.
yeah, and so yeah, I'm. What's the spread for this game?
The Dolphins are favored by 6.5 points, and I will take it.
Yeah, I will take it too because the Dolphins are a very good team. And yeah, definitely gonna win this. Well, I shouldn't say definitely gonna win this. My prediction is that they're going to win this by more than 6.5 points.
Right. Um, you mentioned that they're probably the worst team in the league this year. I don't think they are, but they are one of the worst teams in the league. At least their defensive line is still actually one of the most dominant units in the NFL. So at least they have that going from their run defense is very good. It's an elite run defense. They have Muhammad Wilkerson, uh, Sheldon Richardson, Snacks Harrison in the middle. Snacks. Um, so I mean, really good run defenders. I don't think Wilkerson's playing in this game. That's going to be a shame. I think the Dolphins will be able to run the ball. Um, and I mean, Tannehill's played really well this season. I have to give props to Ryan Tannehill. I mean, there was a lot of talk. Mike Wallace was kind of questioning Bill Lazor, the offense coordinator, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. They've come out and responded with some really good offensive efforts since then. And Miami is still underrated. People, I've been saying this for weeks. This is a good team, and this is one of the best defenses in the league, especially their pass rush is wicked. So I expect them to win the game. If New York has any chance to win the game, they have to limit the turnovers and get going with Chris Ivory. I'm not sure they could do that, but I mean they're playing at their home crowd, and New York will still show up. But they'll show up, and as soon as they do badly, they'll boo them. Uh, so I don't know who's even. I don't even know if Mike Vick is playing or if it's Geno Smith. I don't know. Either one, it's going to be. It could be a recipe for disaster against Miami. Just look really good on defense right now. Um, yeah, taking the Dolphins. You too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
we missed one game that I think we should do a quick recap to, the Panthers
Oh,
Viking game. I think.
oops.
Yeah. I just saw the schedule, and what are your just quick thoughts before we wrap this podcast about that game?
Um, the Panthers are another dysfunctional team. I'm actually gonna. I liked the way the Vikings played against a hot team like Green Bay at home. I think are they at home in this game too?
Um, I will have to check that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
they are. They are.
they are in Minnesota.
Um, I don't. I mean, I think really the NFC South will come down to the Falcons and the Saints dishing out who could be the best bad team. Um, the Minnesota Vikings are 4-7. Carolina's 3-7-1. I think the Vikings will win this game. I think Carolina's offensive line is terrible, and the Vikings' defense is actually pretty good. It's low key. It's actually pretty good.
Uh,
So
do you know the spread for this game?
the Vikings are 2.5 point favorites. I'm gonna take that.
Yeah. Oh, well, they are gonna miss Jerick McKinnon. I think he's doubtful, probably out for this game.
Oh. Ooh, I might just take Carolina. This could be a very close game because I
Yeah,
don't really have much faith in Ben Tate. Although Ben Tate could have a great performance, he's just been terrible this season.
yeah,
Um, and I mean, if you're switching teams, I'm not gonna bet on you. So, poof, I don't know, man. This could be a really close game. Um, but I still think the Vikings are gonna pull it out. But I think it's gonna be closer than I thought.
yeah. One thing you have to say about the Panthers, as bad as they've been, but it's very hard to say where you should put the blame on because the franchise did take away so many good offensive weapons from Cam Newton,
Hmm.
and I still think he's a beast of a quarterback. Still, there's a group of quarterbacks we talk about: Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, RG3, Cam Newton, and am I missing anyone else in this group? Andrew Luck, right? Uh, I still think that Cam Newton can possibly be top two in this list of five quarterbacks.
Did you mention Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck?
Yeah, I did.
Dang.
I think he's got great physical tools. He's got a great arm. Uh, he can run. He can jump, as we've seen. Um, and so, given the right supporting cast, I don't think Panthers are in any kind of crisis. Um, if
Yeah, I agree.
if the front office can provide the right kind of players. And a lot of that got changed when I heard Greg Olson on First Take. I think he talked a lot of sense, and I would urge people to just go and listen to what he had to say. Presented a rather more calm picture of the things of how things are going, and they know as a team they have to perform better. And I think next season could be a different story.
Yeah, I think so. They have to. They're going through a mini rebuild right now because they had players retire and just straight up leave their team. Their only viable receiving option, aside from Kelvin Benjamin, is Greg Olson, who's actually a very good tight end, premier
Yeah.
tight end, I would say, this season. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that they could look forward to. Greg Hardy was an ugly situation
Yeah.
that I don't know how that's going to be resolved in the future. I don't know if he's going to be back with the team. I doubt it. Um, so that was a huge blow to their defense. I mentioned early in the season, but and it showed. They have some dysfunction, but they're not as dysfunctional. I agree with you
Yeah.
than those other dysfunctional teams we talked about.
Yeah. Plus, I
Um,
don't think the media doesn't go that crazy in Carolina. Of course, it's Cam Newton, a guy that the media wants to talk about, but the camera and the journalists are not going to float as much as they would in Washington or New York. So I guess, maybe that helps a tad bit.
yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Um, that pretty much wraps it up, right?
Yeah, it was a long podcast. We talked a lot. Hopefully, the weekend brings about games which match our predictions.
Yeah. I will be betting on some of those games, especially the Chiefs, uh, and a couple other ones. And I feel good about the Steelers too. And I will be really looking forward to that Super Bowl preview.
Yeah. It's
um,
an interesting time of the season because now at least, just like every other season, we know all the teams who are in contention for the playoffs, and it's just turning out to be a really good season once again.
at the end of the year, you start to kind of separate who the pretenders are. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see what this week will bring us. Thanks for joining us on a lengthy but very comprehensive edition of NFL Kill the Clock. This was Anhat Singh and Shaheen Koigani. We'll see you next week.
Wishing you guys a happy Thanksgiving once again.
Peace.
Peace.